Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm film or weather forecast. In this forecast, we are going to be talking about days of severe weather across the United States, some of which days could be outbreaks. So let's get right into it without further ado. Taking a look here at our 500 millibar jet stream analysis, you can see here this is your jet wave and storm system that will be responsible for the significant severe weather going in towards next week. And you can see as we take this past today and into the daytime hours tomorrow, for Sunday, April 27th, could be some isolated, scattered severe weather across portions of southwestern Texas. But the big day comes as we head into the day on Monday, when this jet streak will be sitting over Wisconsin, really all the way in this area. I could expect to see some significant severe weather in the form of damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes, some of which could be on the strong to even intense violent side. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa definitely got to be weather aware. And then as we head into the day, there on Tuesday, the severe threat will continue across areas like the Ohio Valley back into the Northeast. This is the area I think we could see another at least small-scale tornado outbreak. And down here, I definitely think it's going to be more so in the form of damaging winds. But up here, as I mentioned before, tornado outbreak, but also all hazards as well. So all hazards in that area in the Northeast, from really Ohio back up into the Northeast. And down here in Texas, it's mainly going to be a damaging wind and hail threat, but a couple tornadoes still can't be ruled out. That moves out as we head into the day on Wednesday, and then we see another shot of energy down here. This one looks to produce maybe some scattered about severe weather down there. I'm really not impressed with the setup, but as we take this into Thursday, May 1st, this will kind of get a little bit more energy from this trough up here. So that'll be something to keep an eye on, maybe a more robust threat as we head in towards that time frame, but pretty much everything looks to stay isolated at this time. And as we head in towards May, this model likes to show troughing over the east and perhaps a big time storm system around the 5th, which I don't know happens or not, but we do need to stay weather aware because, as you see before, we are going to be getting into a very hyperactive pattern. And taking a look at your low level jet energy, basically the fuel needed to produce tornadoes as we head into the daytime hours through the day on Monday. Notice that big increase in low-level jet energy from Minnesota down into portions of Missouri, back up into portions of Wisconsin. This is your corridor where I think we could see a significant tornado outbreak through the day on Monday, as well as a significant damaging wind outbreak. Can't rule out a derecho as we head in towards that time frame. And then taking it into the daytime hours on Tuesday, we have more low-level jet energy across the Northeast. Across this area. Again, this is your area where I think we could have a small-scale, at least, tornado outbreak continuing into the day on Tuesday, with the possibility of supercells and the possibility of storm clusters and line segments as well. And you notice down here it's not as strong, but down here in Texas, that's another hot spot I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But the Northeast really takes the cake for the possibility of a tornado outbreak through the day on Tuesday. As that moves out going into the day on Wednesday, not really a lot of low-level jet energy, but there is some isolated 40 to 50 knot winds embedded within this. So maybe an isolated tornado, but I doubt anything crazy. As we take this into May 1st, again, maybe a bit more robust threat across portions of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, maybe in this area. But that's still too soon to really dive into right now, rather. And then as we head in towards May 5th, some sort of other storm system. Looks a little on the significant side, but like I said, things will change from model to model over the course of the next week or so. And of course, if we are going to be talking about the threat of severe weather, obviously thunderstorms need lots of moisture to thrive. And we have that going into the daytime hours tomorrow, all right? And that's going to support your severe threat across portions of the western Texas. Not going to be anything crazy, but you notice these 60-degree dew points getting into the central plains, as well as even some 50-degree dew points they're getting into the northern plains, all right? So maybe some storms possible, but I doubt they are severe. But as we head into the day on Monday, guys, look at that big shot at moisture all the way into Minnesota, mid 60-degree dew points, guys. This is a big corridor of very moist and very unstable air. And now, like I said, you overlap that with your low-level jet and stuff like that, you're going to have a pretty significant threat for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in that area, all right? And this setup does support violent tornadoes, by the way. I think I did mention that at the beginning of the video, but as we head into the day on Tuesday, same thing except further east, all the way into Quebec. Very big corridor of 60-plus degree dew points, all right? You can see blotches of 50-degree dew points there in the middle. That's probably a lot of heavy rain, all right? So that indicates you could have maybe some flooding in this area, all right, as well. Not only severe weather, but also flooding. And Storm Prediction Center actually has a slight risk literally just about where I circled, all right? Well, not that far to the north there, but you know what I mean. We pretty much have a pretty buoyant environment for tornadoes, all right? And like I said, you couple that with your low-level jet energy up here, as well as that instability, which I'll show you here in a second, you're going to have the possibility of a significant event. And down here in Texas as well, that's a little also another localized hotspot I'm going to be keeping my eye on. And let's take a look now at our instability, all right? As we take this into the daytime hours tomorrow, notice we could have some thunderstorms again, like I said, getting into the northern plains. Like I said, I doubt it's anything crazy. If we were to see severe weather, it would be in western Texas. And even then, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. There is a lot of instability, though. So a lot of lightning, probably 5 seconds or so breaks from lightning. So definitely going to be some prolific lightning there. But as we head into the day on Monday, look at this instability, guys. Look at this, 1,500 joules per kilogram as far north as Wisconsin and Minnesota, all right? You can see the cutoff there as it moves into Canada, of course. But look down here into Texas. I mean, you can see there's another hot spot for you, all right? Like I said, there's your two hot spots on Monday, all right? Your big hot spot is going to be really the northern Midwest, but there also is the potential in the southern plains as well, always. And as we head into the day on Tuesday, weaker instability. It's not weak, but it's weaker, all right? It's moderate instability in this region, all right? And like I said, this is your area where I'm watching on Tuesday, all right? As I mentioned before, a small scale, at least a small scale tornado outbreak is not out of the question in this region, as well as another localized area down here in Texas as well, all right? Northeast Texas and really the southern Great Lakes and the Northeast are at risk for some pretty significant weather through the day on Tuesday. So you got to be keeping an eye on that. Like I said, damaging winds, hail, tornadoes, all on the table. We can't rule out a few stronger ones in the Northeast, hence that low-level jet energy. And then as we take this in towards May, lots become uncertain. However, like I said, around May 5th, it looks like a rather robust system, so we will need to keep an eye on it. But like I said, things will change from model to model run. And I did want to show you one more thing here, your bulk shear from the surface to about 500 millibars in the atmosphere. As we take this into the daytime hours tomorrow, this is what's going to prevent severe weather from happening. All right, lots of basically a lack of shear. All right, but you notice here, like I said, the exception being West Texas for the possibility of a severe weather threat localized tomorrow afternoon and evening. But then as we head into the day on Monday, look at that shear, guys. This is some incredible shear rates, all right? I mean, you can see from Iowa all the way back into Wisconsin, at least 60 to 70 to 80 knots of that bulk wind shear, all right? That is more than enough to get the job going. And as we head into the day on Tuesday, notice that wind shear is still going for these areas, all right? I mean, you can see at least 40 knot winds in that area, all right? And you can see here, there's your localized area down here in Texas, all right? So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there as we head in towards on Tuesday, of course. And you notice all of that shear. As long as that lines up with our instability, this could be a bad day for the areas I'm circling, all right? Tornado outbreak is possible, so definitely want to be weather aware going in towards that time frame. As I said, as we head into Wednesday, April 30th, there's a continuation of a severe threat with a new storm down here in the portions of Texas. And then as we head into the day on May 1st, the possible continuation into the East Coast, and then things become uncertain beyond that. But like I said, May 5th looks to be a little bit on the robust side, but like I said, a lot to nail down with that system at this time. All right, now that we know the ingredients are in place, let's take a look at our simulated reflectivity as we take this into the daytime hours tomorrow. Notice the thunderstorms, like I said before, that pop up in the plain states. Like I said, I expect most of these to remain sub-severe. If this capping inversion over here can break, we could have a couple stronger storms in Texas, and it does show that happening as we head in towards tomorrow night into early Monday morning there. You can see the little storms there in West Texas, but we're looking toward Monday, and Monday looks robust, guys, all right? This is around 5 p.m. Monday. Look at the storms, really from Iowa all the way back up to Minnesota. Not that these won't be severe down here, but guys, this is the focal point for severe weather, and a tornado outbreak possibly in significant fashion through the day on Monday across portions of really the northern Blue Hill of Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, and specifically southern Minnesota. This is mainly just going to be wind and rain up here, but your severe weather threat is going to be directly south of that, all right? And your significant threat is going to be right in here, all right? Actually, Storm Prediction Center does have a moderate risk, and we'll pull that up here in just a second. But as we head into the day on Tuesday, as I mentioned, continuation of that severe threat possible where your instability is all the way really from the central plains, southern plains, all the way back into the northeast. This is your area, and like I said, I'm going to make a second circle region. This is your area concerned for a tornado outbreak, specifically in the northeast. But like I said, it's also possible in a localized area down here where we could see significant tornadoes as well. So we got to stay weather aware. But once we get into the daytime hours on Wednesday, we fire up another storm system. It looks like a more complexy type storm system as we head in towards Wednesday, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and fine-tune that. As we head in towards May 1st, it looks like possibly another strong to severe thunderstorm threat across portions of the Gulf and Tennessee valleys, as I mentioned before several times. And then as we head in towards around that May 5th time frame, things just become extremely up in the air right now, all right? So please stay weather aware over the course of the next week or so. All right, guys, here it is. Moderate 4 out of 5 severe thunderstorm risk for day 3 for the areas specifically highlighted in the video here. This specifically includes parts of Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, much of central Iowa, all the way back into portions of western Wisconsin, with a big time enhanced risk surrounding that. Again, like I said, your corridor for a possible significant tornado outbreak will really be in this general vicinity right here, all right? Up here, like I said, in the northern Minnesota, it's a bit more conditional. It looks like more rain and wind, but Storm Prediction Center knows more than me, and they do have that enhanced risk way into Canada, so I'm not going to judge them, but I definitely disagree with it being that far north, but definitely still stay weather aware because I could be 100% wrong with that, and I have been before. But taking a look here, you can see there's your 2 out of 5 surrounding that. Don't sneeze at that. That 2 out of 5 is still an area where you'll need to watch because it is hatched out. And as a matter of fact, taking a look here at your probabilistic outlook here, you can see the hatch going all the way down to Texas. That definitely indicates you have the possibility of a significant severe weather. And as we take this into day 4, the threat moves eastward. As I mentioned before, big area from really the northeast. Let me get my pen out. From the northeast back down into portions of really the southern plains, we have a big area of strong to severe thunderstorms possible. Again, I wanted to emphasize this area in here, I expect to see at least a minor tornado outbreak. All right, and the tornado outbreak is at least 6 tornado warnings. All right, in this area, overall, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a small-scale tornado event. And down here into portions of Texas and Oklahoma, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a small-scale tornado event either. But regardless, anywhere really in this yellow area, you have a significant threat of damaging winds. So even if you don't have the possibility of a tornado outbreak, like I said, you still really 100% have the threat for damaging winds. And to include that potential for a possible tornado outbreak, I would not be surprised in my mind at all if Storm Prediction Center goes ahead and issues an enhanced risk in this area for tornadoes and wind. All right, I would not be surprised, and I wouldn't also be surprised that they have another enhanced risk down here. All right, obviously I'm not Storm Prediction Center, so I can't make those decisions, but that's what I'm predicting. Obviously, we will go by from what they say, but the threat does not stop there. As I mentioned before, we have another area down here in the portions of Texas, specifically the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the only major city located in this here. I could zoom in on that. I mean, Dallas-Fort Worth, and a little bit of a minor city, Denton, there in that threat. All right, so if you're in this yellow area, all hazards threat possible, lots of uncertainty still for Wednesday because there's a lot of spread in the model runs, but it's different from Tuesday because Tuesday the models are like all in agreement. It's just where those storms are is highly uncertain, and where those storms are, as I mentioned before, likely in the northeast, the most likely area to see tornadoes as we head and towards that time frame. So a lot to nail down with this threat on Wednesday. I'm Severe Storm Filmer. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of my videos. I know I haven't really been the best at keeping up with my videos, and I apologize for that, but we are going to try to get back on a every other day schedule. Obviously, if I have schoolwork, etc., or busy, I probably won't be able to, especially since May is going to be a busy month for me. But we'll see what my schedule looks like. But for now, I'm Severe Storm Filmer. Make sure you stay safe out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. And obviously, don't feel hesitant to ask any questions. I will answer them.